In professional sports, there's always going to be athletes that play at a high level, but they never really stand out at the top of the charts in any category for whatever position they play because maybe they're not as flashy, they don't have many endorsement deals, or they don't have superstar connections with their players. But seeing how we just talked about Jeremy Mayfield and his interesting story, how about let's talk about the other Mayfield when we go to the NFL? The Mayfield that literally looks like a bunch of flour was thrown on his face as if he was trying to cook a baker's dozen. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield today. Baker Mayfield was born on April 14th, 1995 in Austin, Texas. And early on in his life, the Mayfields did not have a lot of financial success, and they lived in multiple rental homes in Baker's early childhood. Baker grew up as a fan of the Oklahoma Sooners and attended a number of their games during his childhood, and his father had a background in football as well. He apparently had played 3 years at the University of Houston, though he never lettered. Baker's love for football would translate into him becoming a quarterback for his local high school at Lake Travis. He led the Lake Travis High School Cavaliers football team in Austin to a 25-2 record in 2 seasons and won the 2011 4A state championship. He finished his 4 years in high school totaling over 6,200 passing yards, 67 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. His good high school career, he ended up getting 4 scholarship offers from NCAA teams. The schools were Washington State, Rice, New Mexico, and Florida Atlantic. Not really top tier schools in the NCAA football bracket. Baker could have easily gone to one of these schools, but his father convinced him to realize that his dream should be to play somewhere big. So Baker denied all those scholarship offers from before and chose to go to Texas Tech as a walk-on for the 2013 season. Shortly before the start of the 2013 season, Baker Mayfield was named as the starting quarterback for Texas Tech's football team following a back injury to projected starter and, ironically, a former quarterback of the Lake Travis High School team that Baker was a part of, Michael Brewer. With this, Baker Mayfield became the first walk-on true freshman quarterback to start an FBS season opener at the quarterback position. In his first start against SMU, Mayfield passed for over 400 yards and 4 total touchdowns, and he completed 43 out of 60 pass attempts, which broke a school record held by Billy Joe Tolliver and fell only 4 completions short of the NCAA Division I single game record for completions by a freshman held by Luke McCown. For this performance, Mayfield was named Big 12 Conference Offensive Player of the Week, the first freshman Texas Tech QB to be named that award since former Raiders head coach Cliff Kingsbury. Following the Red Raiders' second victory over Stephen F. Austin, Mayfield had already exceeded the true freshman quarterback record that the team had from previous QB Aaron Kesey, but eventually he got a knee injury later on in the year and lost the starting job to fellow true freshman Davis Webb, and Mayfield ended the season with 2,300 yards and 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And he was named one of the 10 semifinalists for the Burlsworth Trophy in November, which is the award given to the best player in D1 football who began his college career as a walk-on. He earned Big 12 Conference Freshman Offensive Player of the Year for the 2013 season, but after that successful year, he announced that he'd be leaving the program and going into the transfer portal due to a quote-unquote miscommunication with the coaching staff. Following his successful 2013 season, and entering the transfer portal, Mayfield would transfer to his childhood dream college, the University of Oklahoma, in January the following year, but he had not contacted the Sooners coaching staff, and eventually he could not achieve a scholarship there because he lost a season of eligibility due to Big 12 conference transfer rules following an unsuccessful appeal of his transfer restrictions, leaving him out of the entire 2014 season. With Oklahoma, he would become an absolute dog, and his 3 seasons there, he led them to 3 consecutive 11-2 records and having his most successful season in 2017, where he threw for over 4,600 yards, 43 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions with a pass completion percentage of over 70%. And in 2017, he ended up winning the Heisman Trophy by a really big majority, and he got 86% of the possible points and the third highest percentage in the history of the award of the trophy. That is the only time a walk on player has ever been awarded the Heisman Trophy, leading him to a really good combine the following year in 2018 when he applied for the NFL draft, leading for him to be drafted first overall by the struggling Cleveland Browns, who were coming off a dismal 0-16 record the previous year with first overall pick from that draft, Myles Garrett. Mayfield would become the instant starting quarterback for the Browns in the 2018 season. 14 games helped them go to a 7-8-1 record, which was their best record since the 2007 season. The Browns as a whole were a pretty mid team, but Baker threw 27 touchdown passes, which broke the record for the most touchdown passes thrown by a rookie quarterback that would later be broken a few years later by Justin Herbert. Baker threw for over 3,700 yards, completed over 60% of his passes, and had 14 picks to go along with his near 30 touchdowns, and rushed for over 100 yards on the season. In 2019, he would form a good connection with Odell Beckham Jr., who would come to the Browns, but Baker only was able to post a 6-10 record in playing all the games with 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 21 interceptions. The problem this season was that his offensive line wasn't helping him. Baker was sacked 40 times for almost 300 yards before they ended up breaking out in 2020. Baker Mayfield in all 16 games would throw for 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, but only 8 interceptions, leading the Browns to their first ever playoff appearance since 2002 with an 11-5 record. And Baker would go on to win his first playoff game against Pittsburgh 48-37 before nearly upsetting the Chiefs in the divisional round before dropping the game 22-17 in the final minutes of the game. In 2021, however, he only played in 14 games and struggled with inconsistency as the team would barely miss the playoffs with an 8-9 record, as Baker would throw for just over 3,000 yards with 17 touchdowns and 13 interceptions and was sacked 43 times. The problem was the Browns was leaning toward a heavy run offense because Nick Chubb was just an absolute dog. And after the 2021 season, in the offseason, the Browns traded for quarterback Deshaun Watson and signed him to an insane contract extension, leading Mayfield to ask for a trade. The Browns would trade Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers for a conditional fifth-round draft pick of 2024, and he competed against Sam Darnold for the starting position within the team. Mayfield was named the Week 1 starter for the Panthers for their game against the Browns, and he threw for over 200 yards, a touchdown, and an interception in the loss despite a late rally. He would suffer a sprain in the Panthers' Week 5 loss against San Francisco, which made him miss the next week, but the Panthers offense, was so dreadful that people were booing them, and that PJ Walker was a starter in week 9 and they were trailing 35-0 by halftime, and Mayfield threw for 2 touchdowns, 150 yards in that loss. But the team was so atrocious that entering that game, Baker was sitting at a dismal 1-5 record as a starter in 6 games and would ask for his release, which was granted in 2022 in December, and it looked like Baker Mayfield's season and potentially his career was going down the drain. Well, that wasn't until his saving grace. Matthew Stafford would sustain a spinal cord injury in early December, and the Rams were in need of a quarterback. Mayfield was claimed off waivers, and they inherited the remaining $1.35 million on his contract, and Mayfield had only 48 hours to learn the playbook after he was claimed. So, against the Las Vegas Raiders, the Rams started John Wolford at QB so that Mayfield could learn the playbook. But Wolford was so bad after the first offensive drive that Sean McVay benched him and told Baker to jump in the game. The Rams were trailing 16-3 in the fourth quarter, and it looked like they were about to lose their 7th game in a row when Mayfield decided to lock in. With a minute 45 remaining in the game, still down by 6 points and no timeouts, the Rams offense took to the field at their own 2-yard line, where Baker would lock in and lead the Rams to a game-winning 98-yard drive, which would become the longest touchdown drive of his career. This would become what we all know as Baker Mayfield's game, the resurgent game. He would complete 22 of 35 passes for 230 yards with no interceptions and was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. And in Monday Night Football in Week 15 against the Packers, Mayfield would throw his 100th career passing touchdown. And against the Broncos, he led the Rams to a dominant 51-14 win while completing 24 out of 28 passes for 230 yards and throwing for 2 touchdowns. After the season, even though the Rams went a dismal 5-12 as the defending Super Bowl champions, Baker Mayfield would say that this 5 game stint with the Rams was the thing that kept them playing in the NFL following his disappointment with the Panthers. He said it, quote, it brought the fun back. When I'm having fun talking trash and enjoying it, like that's when I'm at my best. Yeah, I needed that. And after the 2020 season, Baker Mayfield was in high demand for one of the most interesting teams that needed another quarterback. The greatest player to ever play the game, Tom Brady, was announcing his retirement following the 2022 season, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers needed a quarterback. And guess who they looked toward? Yep, you guessed it. It's Baker Mayfield. They looked to him, and this was going to be Baker's best chance at having a great wide receiver core. Not only having 6'5" Mike Evans to throw to, but also Chris Godwin, and having a good running back in Rachaad White. And early on in the season, Baker Mayfield had a struggling, inconsistent year, having multiple games that had, like, for example, 300 yards, but then other games where he struggled to even pass 100. But throughout the season, his defense was able to lock him in as he was able to lead the Buccaneers to a 9-8 record in the playoffs by passing 4,000 yards passing with 28 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions. He was sacked 40 times, unfortunately, but he was named to his first Pro Bowl, and by making the playoffs in 2023, extended the Buccaneers' playoff streak that they've had since 2020 when Brady first joined the Bucs. Mayfield would go on to upset the Philadelphia Eagles 32-9 in the wild card, and they looked like heavy favorites to beat the Detroit Lions, who were resurgent that season. But unfortunately, Mayfield would throw an interception.
Here comes that pressure. Mayfield in the middle. It's intercepted. It's Derek Barnes. It's off to San Francisco for the Lions.
And a drive that he needed to lock in, and the Lions would go on to win. As a Detroit Lions fan, personally, I saw this game live. I was elated to see Detroit move on, but I felt bad for Baker because I also liked him. But after that 2023 season, the Buccaneers would re-sign Mayfield to a 3-year extension worth up to $100 million. And in 2024, Mayfield would just improve, setting career highs in pass completions, yardage by hitting exactly 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and unfortunately led the league in interceptions that year at 16, but had a passer rating average of 106.8. But unfortunately led the league in fumbles at 13 and had a career best rushing yardage of nearly 400. Despite all those misfortunes for Mayfield, he would go on to be named to his second Pro Bowl. Why? Well, he was able to lead the Bucs to the playoffs once again at 10-7, winning the NFC South again, where Mike Evans would actually finish the regular season with 1,004 receiving yards despite missing 3 games, which he tied the record held by Jerry Rice for most consecutive seasons with 1,000-yard seasons at 11. This was achieved by Tampa Bay unexpectedly getting the ball back with 36 seconds remaining in the final game of the regular season, and Evans caught a 9-yard pass on the final play to lift him over the 1,000-yard mark. And heading into 2025, Baker Mayfield has an NFL record in his pocket currently. He is currently the NFL all-time passer rating leader in the playoffs by right now having a rating of nearly 106 in his 3 years of him being in the playoffs, with 1 in Cleveland and 2 in Tampa Bay. Entering the 2025 season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers only trailed the Kansas City Chiefs with the longest consecutive playoff appearance, as the Chiefs had made every single playoff since 2015, and the Bucs have been there since 2020. And right now, as of making this video, week 6 has just ended, and Baker Mayfield's Bucs are sitting comfortably at 5-1, and Baker's has already thrown for almost 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns with only one interception in those games. Baker's looking to have another career year, and he's just being more resurgent and just climbing up the ranks. It's even more interesting to see that this year in 2025, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have struggled with injuries, but with help from strong running backs like Bucky Irving and a strong defense, Baker Mayfield has been able to captain this Buccaneers team farther than a lot of people thought when they signed him to replace the greatest player to ever play the game of football. But not everyone looks at Baker as one of the top 5 or maybe even top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. This guy is elite. He's a dual threat. He's not a crazy ball hogger that's going to run every single play, but he still has enough speed to make enough plays when it happens. Hence why he nearly had 400 yards last season in 2024. And he's an accurate passer for the most part when he's not throwing interceptions, but he's got a bunch of touchdowns and he throws for a lot of yardage. Baker Mayfield is going to only continue to go up. And ever since that game against the Raiders when he was on the Rams in 2022, it's like Baker Mayfield's career was starting up top and it was slowly trending downward and then hit an all-time low in 2022 and then he just bounced right back up once he joined the Buccaneers. I have a feeling that Baker Mayfield is going to be the Buccaneers quarterback for years to come. And people should acknowledge that this guy is considered on a superstar level. This man that struggled, that lived in rental homes early on, that had to deal with being forced to not play in 1 year of his college career due to a Big 12 conference rule, winning the Heisman Trophy, and all of his college accolades coming as a walk-on player, not only becoming the first and only walk-on player to win the Heisman Trophy as of this upload, but being selected first overall in the NFL draft. Baker Mayfield is, if not elite right now, he's going to be elite at some point and is going to be the main boy for the Buccaneers for years to come. I hope you guys like that video. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
They send pressure. Mayfield evades. In trouble. Stiff arm. Throws. Oh, it's caught! How did he do it?
How did he do it? By being a worthy successor to Tom Brady, an elite quarterback.